Secure ship for sea. Make all preparations for getting underway.
Aye, aye, sir.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a dream away.
Your attention, please. One show for you to see. One for you and everyone.
Now, Mouseketeers, here's one thing we want you always to remember.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mongello, and this is show number 213 for the week of March 13th, 2011. Although I talk, usually at length, about taking time to slow down and appreciate all of Walt Disney World's details, stories, and overlooked experiences, I also understand that for many individuals and families, they have limited time to enjoy all the shows and attractions in the parks. And although we all tour differently, it's about maximizing your time and getting the most out of your vacation experience. This week, we'll look at some tips to do just that, including how using an online resource at home and in the parks can help you save time and money on your next visit. I'll have some announcements and then play more of your voicemails at the end of the show, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show.
Now is the time, now is the best time, now is the best time of your life. Life is a prize, live every minute. Open your eyes and watch how you win it. Yesterday's memories will start.
I talk all the time about stopping to look up and around and enjoy and explore all the details and experiences that Walt Disney World has to offer. But I certainly acknowledge that not everyone has the luxury of extended amounts of time in the parks. Because for many people, a trip to Walt Disney World happens once every few years or maybe even once a year. So it's important to see and do and eat as much as possible while you're there. But no matter how often or when you go, it is about maximizing your time in the parks. Now, for some, like me, that means spending time to slow down and appreciate the details. But for others, it's about enjoying all the attractions and shows, restaurants, including and especially the new e-ticket attractions that maybe were introduced since their last visit. So for those people, it's all about efficiency. Efficiency in navigating the parks, working the Fast Pass system to its fullest extent, and knowing where to go and what to avoid, and of course, when. And nobody's been doing it longer, does it better, or has as sophisticated methods for creating, testing, and implementing their world-famous touring plans than touringplans.com. Not only are they a sponsor of the WDW newscast, you see the little legal disclosure I snuck in there? But they have been longtime friends of mine personally and the show. I've known Len Testa and Bob Selinger, the authors of the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World, since I started way back when. And I'm fortunate enough to call the man who really is the brains behind touringplans.com my friend. A man who I literally and figuratively look up to. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I give you the host of Betamouse.net and TouringPlans.com guru, Mr. Henry Work.
Lou, it is an honor and a pleasure and really an honor to be on the show with you. Thanks a lot for inviting me on.
I am happy that we finally got through all of your agents and your legal team and could work out an agreement to finally get you on the show. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Well, when you sit in front of the computer 20 hours a day, sometimes it's just a little bit overwhelming.
Fans lined up outside your door at the Henry Work Studios trying to get in to meet you. But so before we get started talking about touring the parks and maximizing the time, and I want to learn more about touring plans, I want to learn more about Henry Work, if that's your real name, the man. I want you to kind of come over, sit next to me on the virtual Oprah-like couch. Tell us about how you got started into the Disney geekdom, which you so eloquently rule over.
Ooh, okay. Long story short, I'm a Disney World person. I've been going since I was a kid. You know, my parents were like, we visited friends in Florida. Then it was like one day in the parks, and they built Epcot, and then it was like 2 days in the parks, and then they built Hollywood Studios. It was 3 days in the parks, and then by the end of the time, we forced our friends to come to Orlando and to actually see us when we were in Florida. I'm a computer science guy, web geek, went to school for computer science, started working for a tech blog called TechCrunch. And then I found an awesome job, which is actually doing Disney technology stuff full time. And so I hooked up with the Touring Plans people, and I've been doing that since. I now live in Northern California, so Disneyland I've come to have a big appreciation for. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be able to work on this stuff and build products that, you know, are actually used by, you know, tens and tens of thousands of Disney people every year. And so that's really satisfying.
Living the dream, baby. You're living the dream.
Living the dream. I
Doing
am.
what you love, and it happens to be about Disney.
It's really cool. I'm a huge Disney nut, so I couldn't have really asked for a better job.
So let me ask you, as a wee young lad of 6.5 feet tall when you were 14, were you more of, and certainly it changed obviously over time as the parks grew and Walt Disney World expanded with the number of theme parks, but were you more of a planner, or as you got older, were you just kind of a wing it person?
I've always been particularly fascinated with the operation of the park. I just think, you know, they have 60,000 cast members in Orlando, and everything just seems to work. And it works extremely well. And I've always been fascinated by the efficiency, the operations, and, you know, the people who've built the parks, and I've respected their talents for many years. And so, yes, I've definitely been sort of, I like to be efficient in our time, and we would only have a few days down there, so we try to do as much as possible. I still have like a 94 unofficial guide to Walt Disney World, and you know I found the books really early on, and then I found the Disney podcasting community and the regular Disney community. So I've actually, you know, I listened to my boss Len Testa on WDW Today, sorry Lou, for about 4 years, and I've been a WDW radio listener since day one. So
and yet you kept on listening.
Yeah, I'm with you until episode 10,000. 10,001, not so sure, Lou.
I'm sure there'll be more restaurants to cover by that time. So were you like, you know, many people, myself included, years ago, were the get out the Excel spreadsheet with 5 pages and you lay out your ADRs and you figured all. Was that you, or is that something that you started to develop later on in life, either out of necessity or just because it was fun being a geek and planning so much so early?
I remember obsessing about the parks, and I still do it, and I obsess over the planning. I'm not an Excel person, so we didn't have everything fully lined out. You know, not everyone in my family, as most, you know, families are, you have your super planners, and you also have the people who, like, you know, will, you know, say we need to be spontaneous and we can't, you know, plan everything out. And so we've had a sort of we go back and forth, but I've definitely been very interested in planning and researching. I wore out my Disney theme park videos, that, you know, the videos that they send out now. They send out fancy DVDs, but I had one that I literally just watched on a loop over and over and over again. I collect the travel agent brochures and like look at the prices of each of the resorts and try to like convince my parents about like package deals that we could be getting. So yeah, I'm not as extreme as some people out there, but definitely kind of crazy.
It sounds like you and I are kindred spirits. We spend a lot of probably lonely weekends at home watching Disney DVDs and reading Disney books, thinking about our next trips, not really dating very much in the process. But over time, obviously, you've learned a lot, both because it's your passion and now because it's your job. I want to talk about touring plans a little bit, but I want to know, you know, we talk about how, especially for people who've never been to the parks before, first and foremost, it's not like going to, you know, Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. You've got to plan, and there are so many different elements that you need to take into consideration when you plan. It is so vital when to go, how to go, everything. Tell us how you approach or the advice you give to people as far as maximizing their time in the parks. What are the things that they need to consider?
Right. I mean, I think the first step is just getting in the door is just to plan at all. And if you found this podcast, I'm sure you do. And I think, convincing the rest of your family, the rest of your travel group to sort of participate in the planning is really important. I'm going to be shameless here. I think you should definitely get a guidebook. There's many good guidebooks out there. I think the unofficial guide has the best. And we have this, and we have a choice of sort of what will be interested to you. So we have our big book, which is 900 pages big. And it's, in the top 5 on Amazon Travel. But we also have a color companion, which we introduced last year, which is a much more photo-centric sort of thing, but has a lot of the same high-quality data. And we even have a book geared towards families with children. So it's the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World with Kids, 2011. And I think getting a guidebook, number one, is definitely step one. And I'd like to say that, I bring some key part to the general Disney research and guidebook experience, but I really don't. I mean, these guys have they literally wrote the book on it. The unofficial guide's been around since '85. And, every year we update it, and it's really, I think, it's sort of the definitive guide. So that's where I'd start. Get a guidebook. I think even the best Disney sites on the internet, and there's lots of really high quality ones out there right now. It's really good if you've never been before to just have a guidebook and read it sort of front to back. There really isn't a replacement for that.
Yeah, and I think, too, it could be overwhelming for people. Even people who have been before say, oh, you know what, I was there 10 years ago. I know how to do it. And then they get there, and it's overwhelming. And certainly, I look to the people who come from Disneyland, for example, and come out to Walt Disney World. Completely different experience because you're not walking from park to park for the most part. When you have to introduce buses as modes of transportation and the crowds are different, it's a very, very different experience from the East and West Coasts.
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating in some ways, right? I mean, there are these big books. There's so many Disney websites out there. A lot of vacations are very long, 5 to 7 days, and so even though it can be intimidating, it's still very manageable. And I think, a little bit of planning can go a long way in terms of enjoyment, no matter how you like touring, whether it's, you gauge your success of your vacation by the number of attractions that you hit versus, sometimes I gauge my attraction by the amount of, times I can, go to the Kringle Bakery or, stroll around Epcot. So to each his own, I guess.
Yeah, and we talk about timing being so important. And for some people, when they can go is very limited, whether it's because of work, their kids are in school. Look, my parents yanked me out of school, but I did my homework when I was there. Not everybody is afforded that luxury. But I think what people don't realize, Henry, and is that when you go and where you go are very important as well. And what I mean by that is the parks that you choose. One of the things you guys do over at Touring Plans, and I kind of want to talk about this as well, is you have a crowd calendar. And people say, well, it's okay. I want to go to the Magic Kingdom this day. I want to go to Epcot this day. Explain to us how and why the crowd calendar is important in planning out your trip, because the park crowds and the best parks to go to and avoid can very much make or break how many attractions you get to see.
Right. So the crowd calendar has been around for a few years, and it's by far our most popular thing. For today through the next 365 days, we rank every day in Walt Disney World on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the least crowded and 10 being the most crowded. And also every day we recommend a park to visit. So basically, there's 2 ways to use this. One, it's really, really helpful if you're trying to figure out when to go, right? So if you have the liberty, if you could choose when you get to go, that's a huge advantage. And I think, no matter how much you want to sort of take, relax and take your time, I think everyone will agree it's nicer to go to the parks when they're less busy, right? If you can avoid going between Christmas and New Year's, that's huge. And so using the crowd calendar to get a good sense of how crowded it's going to be. And there's lots of general information out there, but what we're really proud of is that we have a very specific daily recommendation, and we think it's the best out there. The way it works is we've collected wait times for the past 10 years. We have an awesome Canadian statistician named Fred Hazelton, who's been really just sort of monitoring and predicting Disney crowds for years and years. And what we do is we take all this wait time data and we combine it with a huge database of park hours and EMH schedules and show times and holiday and school schedules, historical weather, attraction closures. Like, we know when the attractions were closed over the past 5 years. And we combine all this data, and Fred does a bunch of statistical stuff that I have no idea how exactly it works, but he has a degree at it, so don't worry. And he, spits out these, this data, very trustworthy predictions. We're not 100%, but Disney doesn't release its attendance figures, and so we sort of do the best job that we can. And it's on a scale from 1 to 10, and then the recommended parks thing. So say if you know your days of your vacation, you're a teacher and you have to go, when school isn't out, or you have very specific vacation days every year. What's really good first is if you can't choose your days, at least you can know how crowded it's going to be, right? And that can really influence your expectations, and you can sort of manage them. You know that if you're going on a 9 or 10 day, that it's going to be kind of crazy, and you're going to, you might want to plan your day differently, or maybe even plan your ADRs differently. Or theoretically, if you're local, you might avoid the parks on that day, right? And so once you sort of figure out the days that you have, the next step, as you were saying, I'm sorry for getting to it in a long way, park recommendations. Choosing the park can actually be really important. It's not as important as using a really good touring plan, which we'll talk about. But it turns out that the crowds on some days are more crowded than others by park. So, Magic Kingdom might be good one day, but then the next day it has some event. Maybe it's some special event or some holiday or some reason the data is saying that it would be more crowded on one day versus the other, and maybe you can use that to have not only tour differently, but maybe plan your dinners differently, or but also you can just sort of say it would be a good day to go no matter what. I mean, you could ignore the recommendations as well.
Well, let me ask you this, because you are able to sort of predict the future to a certain degree because of historical data, how often are those crowd levels updated? So how do things like the changing days of holidays or attraction refurbishments, attraction closures, like how often close up to somebody's vacation might that data change as things change? Things that come up might change.
Right. It's hard to say exactly. And one of the things we have done is we created this thing called the Crowd Tracker, or if you're a user of our site, you can come and you can track specific days. Maybe you're trying to decide between 2 weekends or 2 weeks, or you set your days and you're looking forward to it, and you just want to be notified if there's any changes in our forecast. I mean, just like the weather changes, the crowds will change. Fred updates the calendar every day or two. I mean, this isn't something that we just update every 6 months or whatever. And we've set out a ton of infrastructure to try to track every single thing in terms of when Disney changes park hours, because Disney will change park hours if they think it's going to be more crowded, but also it's kind of like a dog chasing its tail kind of thing. If Disney extends park hours, that could mean that more people actually go than they would have. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's you kind of have to guess appropriately. And we have this big infrastructure to try to track when things change. What's really awesome now is that since we introduced our mobile app, we actually have hundreds and hundreds of users every day sending us data, so we can tell really quickly whether our forecasts coming up for the next week or whatever are going to be need to be tweaked slightly. But in general, they don't change too much. Disney has a pretty set schedule of park hours. They don't change them that often. And we've gotten, frankly, pretty good at knowing what the differences are to year.
Right. And obviously on the touring plans website as well too, you also have current wait times. Again, that's also using some of that real-time data that people are submitting. And we'll talk about the mobile app, but I wanted to get into the touring plans themselves because I think that's what a lot of people come to the website for. Not everybody uses it, and I think not everybody even knows what the touring plans are, and maybe the fact that there are not just 2 or 3 different ones, but there's literally more than 100. Explain to us a little bit about what the touring plans are, what touringplans.com offers, the free stuff and the subscription stuff, and everything that's on the site.
Absolutely. So touring plans, a touring plan is a step-by-step guide to seeing as much as possible in Walt Disney World with a minimum of standing in line. And you typically have touring plans for a specific park, although we have a couple that cross over multiple parks in a single day. Basically, they're the brainchild of my boss, Len Testa. He was waiting in line for a great movie ride and was waiting a lot. And he said that there must be a better way of doing this. And turns out that he was going to grad school at the time doing computer science, and he stumble upon this sort of segment of research in the research community. It's very similar to the way UPS actually tracks packages, turns out. And it's kind of a scheduling problem, right? Like if you want to hit 10 attractions a day, which is what Disney says is the average amount of attractions, and say if you want to see 20 in a day, like what is the appropriate order? You might not want to start with Shrunken Ned's Junior Jungle Boats or Country Bear Jamboree when you might want to do Space Mountain or Splash Mountain instead. And it turns out that the computer is actually, if you write the right algorithms, the computer could be really good at guessing the right order in which you should visit the attractions. And our touring plans, we work on them constantly, and they're actually able to save you up to 4 hours in line per day. Which could be huge if you're a family planning a trip, a 2 or 3 day trip, or even a 4-day trip, and you just want to see some of the big attractions. And so touring plans, we have sort of ones for every single type of traveling party. Some for adults, some for seniors. We have sleep-in touring plans and happy family touring plans. If you have to manage plan, like Jimmy wants to go on Dumbo, but Timmy wants to go on the teacups over and over again. One of the ones I really like is the Dumbo or Die in a Day touring plan, which I think is kind of clever. And we've included a bunch of them in the books, but we're sort of limited by space. And that was actually the genesis for the site originally. And so touring plans in general are really useful. And obviously it's sort of this is where I think when people get the impression that it's sort of like a theme park commando kind of site, right? I think people think of the touring plans. But I guess I want to say is that, you could use touring plans however you want. And, you could skip whatever attractions you want. You don't have to sort of have every minute scheduled out. A lot of the touring plans don't have lots of backtracking, so it's not like you're running around the park very constantly. And, a lot of people are sort of resistant to using a plan. You're on vacation and you want to enjoy yourselves. And so what we say is, if you're going during busier times, touring plans can be a great help. If you're going on New Year's Eve to the Magic Kingdom, God bless you.
There is no touring plan for that. It's just
right. I mean, you might want it. You're going to need to get there early, and using a touring plan, you can accomplish a lot. Actually, Len did it this year. He was in the Magic Kingdom in New Year's Eve, and he got like 25, 30 attractions done just by following one of our holiday touring plans. And it could also be a great way if you sort of discovered the site or want to use a touring plan, but you have resistance within the family. Maybe don't use one for one day, and then if things aren't working out, you could always have it sort of in your back pocket just in case you're going to Hollywood Studios and you really want to make sure that you want to go on Toy Story Mania and all the other e-tickets. So it's something that's really useful. It can save you a lot of time, and you can use it sparingly as you feel is appropriate.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I want to kind of play devil's advocate just because I want 3 years of law school to finally pay off. What about those people that say that, planning out every second of the day and sort of following that minute by minute itinerary takes away from any and all spontaneity. They don't want to plan every second. They want to kind of wing it. Do the plans allow for that? Or if you go off, step 3, you're just in trouble for the rest of the day and you might as well just get back to the pool.
No, I mean, even using it as a rough guideline is definitely better than not using it at all. And it turns out that, our order is actually really, like, one thing that I was really skeptical about sort of joining the site. I was like, I know Disney World pretty well. I'm like, come on, Len Testa. And so I thought, but we've actually done a lot of tests that say that even like the best theme park veterans, can't get the order always exactly right. And it sort of adds up, you know what I mean? You save 5-10 minutes here and suddenly by the end of the day, you save like an hour or two. And that's an hour or two that you might not see spending in line. Also, the one thing I'll just say is like, I'm a big WDW radio fan, and I totally believe in, even experiencing and appreciating the queues of Walt Disney World. But I think there's a big difference between like the Joe Rohde Expedition Everest queue and, maybe like the Peter Pan queue or the Indy Speedway queue when it's like 95 degrees outside. You want to try to get the best things out of Walt Disney World, but sometimes try to avoid some of the other issues.
And that's what I was going to ask you as well too. You talked about being sort of the seasoned veterans, and I think there may be a misconception that, well, I've been to Disney World 10 times. I know the park like the back of my hand. I don't need a guide to tell me how to do it. Or on the other hand, they want to take some time and slow down, but that's obviously not the case.
Right. And just to go back to your point about spontaneity, like I think one, the touring plans don't sort of tell you too much about what to do. You can use them very I think it's really important to be flexible and sort of modify them to their needs. One other cool thing that we'll talk about is our mobile app now actually features touring plans. We just added this like 2 days ago. So if you're sort of like, you didn't print them out before you got to the park and you didn't like swift through the ones and you're standing there at rope drop or 10 a.m. even, and you just want to be like, oh, I should have brought a touring plan. If you have a smartphone, you can access them quickly and then have sort of select them for easy access while you're touring around the parks. But yeah, there's obviously, touring plans are certainly not built for everyone. We definitely think they're super helpful when it's crowded out. Because you'll save on generally more time. If you go and the parks are dead, you might not even need touring plans. You can just sort of, just choose the attractions or just literally just go to them, in order of what's closest and what you feel like at every given moment. And we're also working on some stuff to try to be able to sort of have things optimized on the fly in the future. So that could be kind of interesting.
Well, what about things? I mean, do the plans afford for, look, I have 2 young kids. Potty breaks, my incessant need to eat every 30 minutes, the weather. If not, how do those kind of things affect the plans? I mean, if you miss something, if you have the often unscheduled child or adult meltdown, are you now sort of thrown off for the rest of the day, or how does that affect the plan?
Absolutely. So they're actually planned to give you extreme amounts of sort of time between attractions, right? So even if, there's an emergency trip to the Dole Whip stand, right? Like they sort of deal with that gracefully. And it's pretty easy to sort of get back on the thread. And we generally say if you've missed about like 20 minutes of your, you had like a 20-minute detour, then you just sort of skip the next attraction on the plan.
And so in all your years of research and ongoing research, without sort of, giving away the cow, have you noticed sort of any kind of trends as far as, how crowds go or best days to go? Like, traditionally, is the Magic Kingdom more crowded on a Monday and less crowded on a Saturday? Or is it sort of something that changes very often because of all the different factors in play?
I need Fred on speed dial. I'll be very careful about this question because I'm not sort of the data junkie of the group. But so I don't want to say anything inaccurate. I definitely think it seems like Disney World is generally getting more crowded. As a layperson, I'm sure Fred can double check that.
I'll back you up on that one. There is no slow season anymore.
Right. So there are fewer completely slow days, right? And Disney's done a great job at trying to keep, things crowded through the fall and through the winter and stuff like that. Hey, let's, create another marathon, right? It's really interesting if you track like the progression of like very merry Christmas parties and not so scary Halloween parties. Like back in the day, there used to be like 2, right? It would be like not so scary on Halloween, and that's it. And now there's like 15 of them.
Not so scary begins like in August now. So
I know, which is awesome because I like to go in August. It's, definitely get in the Halloween mode.
Right. When it's 97 degrees and 112% humidity.
Yeah, well, my square pants, costume still looks just as good. So it definitely has gotten a bit more crowded. How much I can't really say because I just don't know, but Fred would know. But in terms of general trends, it turns out that most of the general trends aren't. Most of sort of the common knowledge is not always right. Like we've tested things like, you should go left on queues instead of right? And we've tested it. We've really seen on most attractions, it makes no difference. And sort of the best days of the week to go to each parks, actually, it's really hard to predict that in general. And so that's why we sort of have the crowd calendar, because we can sort of say, you don't have to ask a general question about like some Sunday in the Magic Kingdom. You could just look at the date that you're actually planning and go through the information. And one thing we're actually added in the last couple months, which I think is really exciting, is that we've actually been able to predict the wait times for the very day that you're going. And it's all the data just specifically for that day. So if you want to know when the fast passes are going to run out on Soarin' on, June 2nd this year, like we can tell you that. And that's really exciting for us.
I'm sure that's done with something more than Excel spreadsheets. But again, like you, a little bit outside the purview of how much I really want to understand about it. What I find that I use things like the crowd calendar for, and I think one of the benefits too, is that because you alluded to the fact that there is so much going on all the time, people may not realize the different special events that are going on. So, for example, ESPN The Weekend changes. Sometimes it's in February, sometimes it's in March. If people don't know that that's coming up and be like, hey, we're going to go to, Saturday afternoon, let's go and hit Toy Story Mania first, they may be surprised when they see that the crowd is a 9 instead of what they would have thought would maybe be a 3.
Absolutely. And, if you're not aware of like the Fantasmic schedule, the Fantasmic, Fred did this big blog post about how much it impacts the Hollywood Studios crowds, both the seasonal events and also the showtime schedules themselves, which we both have on the site, could definitely, affect the way you're touring. They may not affect wait times so much. ESPN doesn't really affect wait time specifically, but if you don't know that they're going on, you might either miss them or be influenced them otherwise.
Yeah, you might be surprised by the crowd that's been lining up since 6:30 in the morning because they wanted to go and meet Tony Dorsett or the Tampa Bay Buccaneer cheerleaders. I'm raising my hand.
Nice. The
other one that's Tony Dorsett.
Absolutely. The other one that always throws people for a loop is like when the Super Bowl, how people are going to Disney World, the MVP goes to Disney World, the day after the Super Bowl. We've found that, that actually doesn't affect wait times that much, but it'll certainly make Main Street a lot more crowded during the parade times, right? Same thing when they're taping the Christmas parade.
I was just thinking the same thing, right?
Every year. So it's, we track all that stuff and we let you know about it.
Well, let me ask you this, because you obviously being the host of Betamouse.net, and we'll talk about sort of that Disney/tech podcast later, but you're very much in tune, like I am, with the technology, and certainly Walt Disney World is always in a state of growth and development and change, and specifically the introduction of new technologies into the attractions, and more specifically as far as crowd calendars and touring plans go, even the queues themselves. I mean, recently Winnie the Pooh had probably most extensive and interactive queue in there. Soarin' sort of started the trend. I think we could safely say that the Haunted Mansion, most probably Peter Pan, is also going to get a change in their queue, something more interactive. What do you think, and how do you think that's going to affect, the interactive queues? How are they going to affect things like touring plans and even maybe how people approach, the way that they approach the parks?
Well, I am, for one, not only being a Disney and technology fan, I'm extremely excited in Disney sort of taking lines more seriously and, trying to get into the trip planning process a little bit. I really love the interactive queues. Winnie the Pooh, I think has a lot of potential. I hope they keep expanding like that. I'm really looking forward to Mansion, and then, as you say, Soarin' and Space Mountain, I think is pretty cool. And the progression of queue technology, I think, is generally exciting because one of the things that personally I'm not a huge fan of. I'm a relatively impatient person, Lou. Is waiting in line, right? Waiting in line is not that much fun, unless if the queue is well themed and you have stuff to explore. So in general, I'm really excited. In terms of how it affects the crowds, like right now, the interactive queues are pretty much trying to make the standby experience feel less bad, right? They won't really affect, the overall capacity of the attraction. You'll still have to wait the same amount, but hopefully you'll be more entertained. And I think that's great. I mean, and the really interesting thing, which you've done a newscast about, is the Disney rumoring or Disney announcing that they're going to allow ride reservations at some capacity to be scheduled from home. And that's the really big question mark, right? So like, how is that implemented? How does that affect touring? Will everyone be able to access that? But ultimately, we think in terms of like how it affects our company, we're still in the game of trying to make vacations as happy as possible and reducing stress, and moreover, predicting crowds and using research and technology to do that. And so we don't think the crowds really change very much. Just sort of the way you may approach touring may change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up sort of that next gen and sort of what Tom Staggs had alluded to in the investors conference about how they were going to possibly afford people the opportunity to start really planning and scheduling their vacation before they leave home, whether it's not only advanced dining reservations, but fast pass reservations, and who knows. And we know very little about it, and I assume it's going to be some time before it's implemented. And Henry, not just because you're a friend, but because of my curiosity about touring plans, I immediately thought of you and how that might be able to affect what you guys are doing. The difference being that what Disney is doing is definitely going to be geared towards the family that is very, very involved in wanting to plan everything out super early. The ones that don't, that want to just kind of go and wing it, and we'll figure out where we're going to eat once we get there. Probably not going to make that much of a difference in. But, what you guys do, I think, strikes a nice balance, because if you do want to sort of really plan it as hardcore as possible, you have all the data there. But if you do want to go to the parks and say, okay, what is the best way to sort of get the most out of my day? I know I'm going to go to the Magic Kingdom, no matter what the crowd calendar says. You guys can sort of help navigate what could potentially be a crowded day there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sort of, Disney holds all the cards, and we're excited about what happens. Most of these big changes seem like they're still a few years out, and they haven't announced too many details about them. But we're sort of eager to sort of see how it all plays out, and then ultimately try to help people as much as possible for the stuff that Disney doesn't change.
And look, I am fortunate enough that I live in Florida. I go to Disney World a lot, but you made mention before, and one of the things that I find that I use, I am a touring plan subscriber. One of the things that I use more than the site is actually the mobile app, the Lines application. I have it on my iPhone. If I understand correctly, it's available also in the Android marketplace, and you can also access it just if you have like a smartphone via any web browser.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, we have native apps for iPhone and Android, and then we, for everything else, it has a pretty web-friendly version.
So I know what I specifically use Lines for, but tell us what the application does and what kind of data it provides.
Right. So what I like to say about Lines is it's a really good mobile companion, and it can be used for serious touring. Like, we have a touring plan. We're going to the best park recommended, and we're going to try to do as much as we can. But it can also be used for very, very casual touring. Like you're sipping a beverage strolling around Epcot and you're just wondering if you can hit Soarin' right before illumination starts, or you're on Kilimanjaro safaris bouncing around and there's no animals out, and so you're looking on your smartphone, of course, and you're looking to see what the standby time is at Everest. Right. Fundamentally, it gives you the current wait times, but I think what also sort of separates us, and it's sort of up our neck of the woods, is that it predicts what wait times are going to be in the future. Right. So you can get access on the app for all the wait times, what they are right now, but also for the rest of today and tomorrow. And that's kind of useful too, because we predict when the fast passes will run out. So if you're really itching to do space with a fast pass, we'll give you an estimate of saying we think it's going to be gone around 1 p.m. And that's really useful because it's hard to sort of keep track of that in your head. And it does a lot of other things. So it does, attraction closures. We have the crowd counter information in this 10-day forecast inside the app. So you can check to see, if you didn't bring your laptop to your resort, you can quickly load up, what the best parks are for tomorrow and what the crowd levels are going to be. And that's sort of what it does. It's also, you can submit wait times. What's really cool is that hundreds of people use and submit wait times every day in the parks. And so lines actually get smarter each day. And what's also really cool is that it tells you when attractions are closed. Right. So a user on one side of the park will tell you that Test Track is down, so you don't have to, end that Sunshine Seasons lunch early, for example.
Right.
So it's sort of like an on the ground reporting tool. It tells you what's going on right now and will tell you and predict sort of the near future.
Yeah, I find that I use it in the park honestly more often than I thought it would. I said, look, I go to Disney World all the time. I'm not really, when I go, it's usually for work or research or to eat. But I find that I'm using it more often than not, even for the simplest things like in lieu of a times guide. I looked at, all right, I'm in the Magic Kingdom, but I have no idea what time it closes, right? Or what has extra magic hours tonight. I actually just used it a few days ago. I happened to be with a bunch of friends. We were in Tomorrowland enjoying one of those tasty taco hot dogs from the lunching pad, which of course I had to throw in there. But I said, but somebody wanted to ride Big Thunder Mountain, and we didn't know what the crowds were like. We didn't know what the wait times were like. I was able to look down and see, according to the Lines app, what the wait time was, when the Fast Pass return time was. So it gave us an idea if it was worth walking across the park to go ahead and ride the attraction. And it worked. I mean, I was surprised at how accurate the numbers really were. And I guess that goes to, again, that real-time data coming from sort of the community of Lines users that likes being able to be part of that and help contribute by submitting those times.
Right. Plus, you get badges if you submit wait times, which is kind of cool.
Oh, so you're kind of going with like a whole Gowalla kind of check-in.
Yeah, we throw in some game mechanics. You could get earned badges and get stats and become maybe the top submitter if you're a hardcore local, which is kind of cool. One thing I definitely want to say is that we come up with our own. We use Disney's posted times. Also, if you're a regular user, you can actually now time the actual amount of time that you spend in line. There's a little feature, and it doesn't drain your battery or anything. And we use those combined with all of our historical data about what we think the ride is going to be, and we try to produce the best wait time estimate possible. And so occasionally it might be different than Disney's, but that's okay because we just sort of think differently than Disney. And so we think in our experience, it's sort of the best of both worlds. It has a focus on the past, but also gets all this data from the present. So even if something goes crazy and there's only one user in the parks tomorrow, it'll still be really useful.
Well, how do you deal with, somebody from the Beta Mouse podcast? I might say, what, I'm going to be a clown. I'm not even in Walt Disney World. I'm going to submit a Carousel of Progress wait time of 120 minutes. How do you sort of deal with that sort of, obviously incorrect data coming in?
Right. Those Beta Mouse listeners, they are rabble rousers. They rouse rabbles. Yeah. So we have a lot of sophisticated ways. I'm sort of like, I don't know, racking my fingers right now in an evil pose. we sort of know what it's supposed to be, right? Because we project into the future. And so we can sort of detect when things are, not as they should be. But also, we're really lucky. We have an awesome community of users. We have a chat room on the site, and we have all these people monitoring it. And so typically, the only issues that we've really had are like when some guy gives his kid, like his 4-year-old kid, the phone for a few minutes, and they're like, "I want more badges." Blah, 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 blah. So they'll submit 10 wait times for Journey into Imagination in like 5 seconds. But yeah, so we haven't had too many issues. And what's also, good and bad is that there are definitely other apps out there. We think ours has really high quality data, and we think ours is unique because we predict the future and stuff. But having our site subscription cost a small fee. So for it's $10.95 for 365 days of access, actually reduced the amount of issues that we had significantly, because once you sort of pay for something, you don't really want to mess with it. You know what I mean? So we've been really lucky, and we think we've kept the accuracy really, really high.
So you said the Walt Disney World is for $10.95 for 1 year. Disneyland is $6.95 for a year. That gives you access to both lines and the website, because there's some free information on the site and there's some paid. Can you tell us what the subscription gives versus what's free?
Sure. So most of the content on the site is free. The only things that you have to pay for are the crowd calendar information, for the full crowd calendar. We have sort of a tease up on the site, but we invest a ton of energy and effort to get those numbers accurate. So that's why we feel comfortable charging for them. The touring plans, we have a few sample touring plans just to see what they're like and how it works. But we have about 150 of them on the site for Disney World, and about 10, I think, for Disneyland. We're working on improving our Disneyland touring plans. And so most of them, you have to pay for it, and then to have access to lines, it's part of the subscription. So you get all of them in one. And if you're a crazy Disney World / Disneyland person, you can get both of them for a discount. Also, if you're an unofficial guide reader for Disney World or Disneyland, we have a substantial book discount as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
All those things. I love them all.
All right.
Listen,
Let's go.
I hate to admit that I actually have every unofficial guide going back to like 1986. I just feel compelled to buy it every year. So
we need a picture with you and those all holding them or something in front of Spaceship Earth.
So let me ask you, I know that you've got, the sort of laid back touring plans. You got ones for adults and kids and seniors. Have you ever done sort of the ultimate hardcore, as many attractions in a day as you can in Walt Disney World?
Oh, yes. I've done it a few times. It's sort of a rite of passage within the company. It's like our hazing rituals.
Right after the bloodletting ceremony, you have to do the ultimate touring plan.
Right, exactly. So we have this thing called the Ultimate Touring Plan. They created it as like a gimmick, or like, is this possible? And like a few years ago, and it turns out it is possible. So what you try to do is hit every single attraction, show, parade, fireworks presentation, character meet and greet that you can in the Magic Kingdom. And we also have ultimate touring plans for the rest of the parks as well. Although I'm personally looking for like a Le Cellier ultimate touring plan, but that's for another day. So basically it's, see as many attractions as you can as possible. And it's really fun. Our record holder is like 72 attractions right now. I've managed like 55 or ish, but that's before we sort of tweak the rules to allow more character meet and greets and stuff like that. So it's quite, if you're a serious theme park commando, you can do that with us.
Wow. Do you have like an ultimate dining touring plan? Because I want to see how many restaurants I could eat in a single day. That's the kind of research I'm down for.
Let's do it. Food. I think you probably do that with Food and Wine. We'll contract you to construct the Food and Wine touring plan for next year.
Listen, I'll wear one of those spiffy maroon, burgundy, whatever color touring plans T-shirts and do it for Food and Wine. But I will tell you that as a testament to how well these touring plans work and how well you know what you guys are doing, I've got to give you credit, because you won by a landslide. Not really, but who's counting? The D23 scavenger hunt in Destination D last year in Disneyland. I assume you're coming back to defend your title in Destination D in Walt Disney World.
Uh-oh, the smack talk begins. It's on, Mongello.
Dude, I kneel before Zod, man. You guys crushed it, so...
Well, it helps when you. What's cool about the scavenger hunts is that we were really thrilled to even participate last year, and we thought it was actually a really well run event. And Disney World seems like even crazier. I mean, we're going to all 4 parks, and who knows how they're going to tweak the rules this year. It's really fun. I mean, literally, what we do, some of the more extreme research that we do on a day-to-day basis is we collect a lot of wait times, especially for Disneyland, because we just built our site for that one. So we had to, we didn't have these lines users to depend on. So we had to go out and, walk the parks as much as possible. So we got a really good sense of where things are and all the hidden details and stuff like that. And so Disney World, however, I'm a little bit rusty on. I go there probably way more often than any sane person should. But I don't know. You and Scott Otis, I think you'll be a formidable team.
Just look out for Scott Otis, man. He's going to try and sweep the leg. So
it's okay. I'll hold some I'll have a block of cheddar in my backpack just in case.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And again, I think it sort of goes to just knowing how to approach the parks. I think it's sort of a derivation of what you do, just because the way you tour and what you do for work. Henry, I definitely want people to go by and check out touringplans.com. You guys also have a blog there as well. You have a number of really great contributors to the blog. They can get the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World, the Color Companion, A Day in the Life of Henry Work on Amazon.com. You could download lines from iTunes. You got to follow Touring Plans on Twitter and on Facebook. They are Facebook and Twitter.com/touringplans. You can also find Henry working his magic on Twitter as well.
Thank you so much. It's a really cool job. We really think the site can really help people, and no matter if you're a theme park commando or you want the ultimate touring plan to experiencing not doing attractions at Epcot or something, we think it'll work for everyone, and hopefully our products will continue to improve, and we're excited.
And listen, if you love Disney and technology, and really, who doesn't, or you just like the melodious harmonic sounds of Henry Work's soothing voice, go check out Betamouse.net. I am a Betamouse listener, again, like you, since episode 1.
Fanboy number 1 of the Betamouse Nation, Lou Mangello.
It just keeps getting funnier every single time I listen.
Yeah, no, if you're into Disney and you have any kind of technological bent or not, come listen. We're trying to siphon off as many users as possible from your podcast, clearly. Listen,
it's all good. We're one big happy family. And listen, Henry, I want to have you back. There's a couple other ideas I have for some fun stuff that we can talk about, and you can share some of that Henry Work goodness.
Definitely, sir. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, buddy. Thanks. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks so much for taking the time and tuning in this and every week. Thanks again to my guest, Henry Work. You can find him over at touringplans.com or check out his podcast over at betamouse.net. Don't forget, I love hearing from you. I want you to interact with me in the show. Be part of the WDW radio community. You can email me at lou@wdwradio.com or call the voicemail toll-free. Be heard on the air at 888-703-2171. Be sure to visit the website at WDWradio.com for all the different ways you can connect with me in the show, talk with other Disney fans in our fun, friendly, safe discussion forums. You can also check out our daily blog posts, photo galleries, and all the videos that I post both on the site or in our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/WDWradio. In addition to the weekly podcast, don't forget to tune in every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for the WDW Newscast. It's a live, interactive video news show covering Walt Disney World where you can be part of the broadcast and the discussion, talk about the news real time in the chat room. If you can't make it live, you can watch right after and continue the conversation over on our YouTube channel. To watch live every Wednesday night, again, that's 7:30 p.m. Eastern, visit WDWnewscast.com, or you can also check out the audio-only portion of the newscast by listening to and subscribing to the WDW radio feed in iTunes. Speaking of videos, I'll be posting more videos to the site and the YouTube channel in the coming weeks, including more from the Disney Dream. If you are a new subscriber or new listener to the show, welcome. Be sure and go back either in iTunes or on the site to check out some of our past videos. They're all archived there, as well as all the old past episodes of the show. Most are evergreen. They include interviews, reviews, Wayback Machines, trivia, lots more. Again, you can find them all in iTunes or by clicking on the podcast tab on WDWradio.com. Quick reminder about upcoming events in and around Walt Disney World. The April date for the Meets of the Month should be coming soon. Don't forget, we'll be cruising again on the Disney Dream in 2012. The 40-hour show and events the weekend of October 1st, celebrating Walt Disney World's 40th anniversary. Our regular meets, our Adventures by Disney trip, the D23 Expo, lots more. In May, we also have Destination D and the D23 Scavenger Hunt. Speaking of which, a great way to prepare at home is with, shameless plug, the Walt Disney World trivia books and the audio guides to Walt Disney World. They both include trivia, secrets, fun facts, history, a lot of little details that just may help you and your team prepare for the hunt. Visit WDWradio.com, click on the shop tab. There you can get signed copies of the trivia books. You can also get the audio guides either on CD or as instantly downloadable files. Thanks as always to my partners and sponsors, including MEI and Mousefan Travel. They are my official and recommended travel provider for all your vacation planning needs, whether you're going to Walt Disney World, out to Disneyland on the West Coast, Adventures by Disney, or on the Disney Cruise Line. They give you the best possible prices and discounts, all with the amazing level of personal service that Becky Mankin and her team are noted for. If you're looking for a vacation home around Walt Disney World, check out allstarvacationhomes.com. They have private pools, spas, complete kitchens, game rooms, multiple master bedrooms, lots more. And I also want to welcome a new partner to the show. They are in Walt Disney World's downtown Disney, Bongo's Cuban Cafe. It's a lively restaurant that recreates the feel of a 1950s Havana nightclub with the flavors of the Caribbean, both at lunch and at dinner. It is, of course, created by music superstar Gloria Estefan, and authentic Cuban cuisine is matched with wonderful live music and dancing on Friday and Saturday nights. There's indoor and outdoor seating, 3 bars, an express window, lots more. You can go visit them over at Downtown Disney or at bongoscubancafe.com. As always, my friends, if you like the show, all I ask is that you please help spread the word. Let others know about it. Tweet out that you're listening. Share the link on Facebook. Please come by, review the show and the free WDW Radio iPhone app over in iTunes. And of course, my friends, and you are my friends, thank you again for taking the time and for listening and for all the great feedback that you send me through email and Twitter and Facebook. I sincerely appreciate it, and I read everything that you send to me. I also answer every email, and I promise I'm a little behind, but I will get to your emails, I swear. So until next time, I hope you are inspired to start pursuing your passion, following your dreams. And once you do, always keep moving forward. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Have a great week. See ya.
Hi, Lou. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Sigmund. I was the pediatrician from Scranton, Pennsylvania that met over at the boardwalk at the last meet of the month prior to your setting sail. I just really want to give my heartfelt thanks. I am doing what many think is a very foolish thing, being a Disney freak and wanting to be so close to the parks. I felt that this was a good move, but I did it backwards. Usually you get a job lined up first and then you quit. I quit and without a job, so I am currently entrenched into some job searching while I await my Florida medical license to come through. But life must move on, and I must get myself prepared to come to Florida. But all that hesitation, and quite literally I was shaking talking with you for so long and then meeting your incredibly enthusiastic and positive wife, and also among many, many other people who all had similar stories and backgrounds. It definitely made me walk away with a smile on my face that I don't think disappeared until I got up to Space Mountain at around 9 o'clock at night, and it was closed, and I had a 9 to 10 p.m. fast pass. So, anyhow, I got over it. I rode the PTA and saw what was going on inside with the lights on. Just to make sure they're not ripping me off, I guess. But anyhow, long message, but Lou, you inspired me over the last 2 years to chase my dreams, and as a fellow Northeastern transplant, I see you made the right choice, and I know in my heart of hearts now, I've met a wonderful, wonderful extended family called the WDW radio team, with its leader, Lou, and your wife, and you do wonderful things. You're a wonderful person. You're chasing your dreams. And my God, I hope to be able to help out in some way. As a pediatrician as well, the Dream Team Project is near and dear to my heart. When I was younger, I had a 14-year-old brother who had passed away from cancer in a matter of 3 months from diagnosis to death. And that drove me into pediatrics. And throughout my career, I definitely have been doing Make-A-Wish donations when I can. However, with this Dream Team, I really want to volunteer as much as I can, get involved, raise money, not to mention my move down here in sales of my business has put me in a very good financial state, so I definitely want to make a sizable yet anonymous donation to the Dream Team to help bring a kid down here and just have the dream that we were so fortunate to have between our ages of coming here. For me, it was between 2 and 14. Long message, but I tried to type it out, and it just didn't seem to get through. So thanks, Lou. I look forward to seeing you probably at your April meet of the month. Good luck in all that you do, and thank you for all that you do. You two keep moving forward, and I think we all will follow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, Lou. This is Sharon from the suburbs of Cleveland. And I just listened to show number 211 about the best Walt Disney World restaurants for families with children. And I'm so excited because March 10th, we're making our ADRs for our next up-and-coming trip. And this show just inspired me and excited me even more when I make those reservations and looking forward to the Princess Dinner at Norway. We've never have done that, so we're looking forward to taking our little princesses there. Thanks for the show, and always appreciate it. Good night.
Hey, Lou, this is James in Chicago. I just wanted to let you know I was at an event last night at our airport here at Midway in Chicago. I work for Southwest, and we had a charter plane with a bunch of radio contest winners that went to Orlando, and they had a 3-night stay there down in Disney World. And Mickey came and greeted everyone, but I got to meet probably the most popular guy of the evening, in my opinion, was one of the Disney ambassadors, Norman. And he's the Disney ambassador for this year, and what an amazing guy. And we were talking, and he heard of you, he's seen your website before, and it was really cool because you became topic of our conversation, but it was a lot of fun, and can't wait to come back down there and meet up with him again. So I thought I'd pass it along and say hello, and thanks for everything you do. All right. And congratulations again. I'm a little behind on my shows, but congratulations on the 200th episode. And I'm still listening. Bye.
Hey, Lou, it's John. It was great meeting you today at the Meet of the Month at Animal Kingdom. I've been a big fan of the show for a long time. It was great to shake your hand in person, and thank you for all you do, and you too, Becky. And hope to hear a segment on the show sometime in the future about going to Walt Disney World by oneself, spending the day at the park by yourself. We spoke a little bit about that today, and I've done it a few times, and I did it today. And it's a great time, even if you can't be with all your friends and family. So, great show, Lou. Had a great time meeting you. Thanks for everything you do. Bye.
You've got a friend.